What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today is Wednesday. This is the Mike and Dan Show. And if this is your first time here, this is the show where we teach you to make massive income, not just passive income, with your real estate investing business. My name is Mike DeHaan. I'm here with my co-host here, Dan Austin. And on these Wednesday shows, we dive into real estate investing business and whatever else we feel like for that. But day, week, month, whatever time frame we're currently living on. Hour. Sometimes it's hourly if stuff's getting a little bit hectic. But yeah, and it's funny. Beginning of the year, though, man, it's funny. Like the people kind of rip on like the New Year's resolution thing, which I do too. Honestly, I think New Year's resolutions are kind of for chumps. Like you should have like New Year's goals.
Are you kidding me? No, I wait 350 days after I failed in the first few days of the year to set my next year goals.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, some people are doing 75 hard. I did like 7 hard and called it good. You know, I was like the average person.
7's good. I mean, really, if you think about it, that's a lot of work.
It's a holy number, dude. It's the Lord's Day. Yeah. So like I was big in having like goals and making your quote unquote resolutions be like your action steps to do whatever you're going to do in like the first quarter as opposed to trying to look for a year, because who knows what the end of the year is going to look like. But it's funny, the entire team came in after the holidays and started getting after it right away, which has been good. And then I feel like as well, just as a business as a whole, we've accomplished a ton in the first little bit of the year here. I got a cold calling team stood up in like 7 days. Basically, SMS was kind of on the brink. It is still kind of on the brink. So I was like, we need some more outbound marketing. Went and posted some listings on Upwork, got a cold calling team stood up and operating. Currently, it's the second day that's been active. We already have 7 leads. Some of them actually look pretty promising too. So that's pretty awesome. We got a couple of transactions moving. We've had a couple of closings. Overall, sales team numbers are looking really solid. Marketing started to tick up. It's always like, that first period of time, I think after the break, it just feels like it's extra productive. Like people are hyper focused. So it's been fun to dive into
really
that.
What I've learned is like, don't sleep on how productive you can be, especially in that first part of the year. For whatever reason, like you said, New Year's resolutions are for chumps or whatever you said. But like the idea is like these defining marks, like January 1st, for whatever reason, just in the US, for example, we kind of slow down the last couple weeks of the year. You're maybe not as focused on business because you had a Christmas one of those days and New Year's, whatever you're doing, right? There's like this demarcation of the first of the year. Taxes, everything on the P&L before that is done. It's history. You can't change it, right? And so you're fresh. And like we did the same thing last year. You and I, that's one thing we've done since the beginning. And I still have some of our early like butcher block paper we put up on the wall of like, here's our goals for next year. Like as far as like, what are we going to do? What part of the business are we going to grow? And like last year, we hired our business coach January 1st, essentially, and hit the ground running. And like literally just in that first quarter, working with him changed our trajectory. And I feel like now, having gone through that last year, we understand what we needed to know back then. And now it's to take time to take it to the next level. And like we're already hitting the ground running, standing up new profit centers. Like you said, we've got the cold calling team going, the dispositions team we're building out now. And it's like we're so much faster at it the more experience we've gained. It's really fun to see. So I just say don't sleep on the progress you can make from that day one, January 1st till the end of the first quarter, because that's what really does set you up for like a badass year when you look back.
For sure. And it's funny, I guess, as we've been kind of divvying stuff off within the business and deciding what we were each going to work on as we're trying to sort of scale some new things out. It's been a good testament, I guess, and for me about what how much of a learnable skill like entrepreneurship is and kind of like leadership is, which I didn't understand a few years ago when we got started. And like a lot of people in our scale community are kind of going through the early phases of leadership and hiring a lot right now, and stuff takes them a very long time. We can go and we can bring on 4 cold callers, build a team in like 6 days pretty much. A lot of them, they'll spend a month trying to find their first virtual assistant. And it's because there's this level of confidence that comes through, when you have more expendable income to spend on a team member if they don't perform and they fail, that helps a ton. But also to understanding how to relay information and set expectations makes it so much easier for those first people to come in and be successful, that it's easier to just like jump in and be like, yeah, we need to bring someone on for this role. And we know when you're a small business, the sort of general term people say in business is like to hire slow and fire fast. I think that honestly, when you're a small business, you're trying to grow aggressively, you need to hire fast and fire faster. That was one of our big things that we dove into in KeysCon. And so being comfortable to take the leap, find the person, qualify them, and let them learn through not only their failure, but also sometimes yours of trying to establish that system, and then build the system while they come in and try to figure it out. I think so many new entrepreneurs, if they are trying to stand up a part of their business, they want to be an expert at it. It's like, really, you need to understand the gist of it and then bring someone in that's going to work on that system 24/7 and then just tweak and refine it for them, make it better. And then if they end up leaving, it'll be better for the next guy because you just learned from them being the owner of it.
Right. Yeah, I think you're making a lot of good points there too about just that maturity of business and like taking those leaps because really fundamentally, like you can't learn anywhere near as much if you're not taking action. Like you can't listen to a group coaching call like, we do, like that helps. You can't listen just to podcasts. You can't just read a book on, especially leadership.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is really hard to teach. You can teach some fundamentals, but putting it into practice and putting it into your own form of how you are is the best way to do it. Right? So you got to take action. I will say there's like a little bit of a nuance to this, and on our coaching call today was a fascinating conversation. One of the guys brought up was like listening to this mantra of like, your time is so valuable, delegate everything and hire all this stuff out. But there's like a point where you kind of earn that right. If you're going from like entrepreneur, like solopreneur or side hustle, grinding it out, building something, like your time really isn't that valuable at that point in time. Like you should be kind of putting in the effort because nobody's going to work as cheap as you work, which is free. And nobody is going to have the skills that you have for free. And nobody's going to be as dedicated to the mission, right, for free. And so I just thought that was a great like thought process for me as he was talking about that is like, you do kind of sometimes have to cut your teeth. And then you have to be willing to not be the expert and pass that off to somebody who can do it as, 80% as good.
Yeah. And it's kind of the great thing and the terrible thing about social media, right, is it gives you access to high performers and the people that have been very successful in business, and you can engage with them. You can hear things that they say directly to you as a content consumer. And I guess for context, what the member you're talking about came up on the coaching call today was he was talking about how they got into the delegation thing a little bit too aggressively, too early, and they didn't even know how to build a team or run leadership. They kind of got bit. And the issue, like I'll go back to the social media thing I was saying is, the great thing is you can get access to those people. The bad thing is they are projecting information and content that probably is not relevant to you, to be completely honest. Like,
it will be at some point, just not right now, maybe.
Just not right now. It's like the different business advice they give, like you should have a certain amount of dollar per hour for yourself. You should delegate every single thing that you're not good at, that you don't know how to do. Like that is true when you kind of have an understanding and you have a certain level of resources and leadership experience. And that's what those people do now. But they didn't do that when they were getting started. They aren't successful because they did that. They evolved to that because they got successful by working their ass off. It's kind of like the same thing as all the business people that talk about their crazy morning routines where they have their ice baths and they do their meditation and they have their planners and whatever. That's not why they're successful. They have the ability to focus hours every single morning on all that shit because they got successful already.
They earned it.
They're already rich. They can do whatever they want. They can have their...
They're rich enough to own an $8,000 cold plunge and a $15,000 sauna.
Right?
And like whatever else, like they have in their home for the healthcare, which is amazing. That's what you should aspire to, but that's not what got them.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with a lot of business advice that's out there, whether you're listening to, Cody Sanchez or the Hormozis and all these different things. I will say like this is one of the really big reasons I like Alex and Layla Hormozi a lot. Is they are very on the nose about like they went through that business growth like not that long ago, and they don't try to hide that, right? And one of the big things that I like that aired not too long ago was on Layla Hormozi's podcast, or what hers is called, but she gets overshadowed by Alex a little bit. He's a much stronger personality.
He says she does all the work and he gets all the credit.
Yeah, I know.
That's that's what he says all the time.
Yeah, I know. And they've even spoken about that openly. But she had a thing and she said, you have no business to be removing yourself from your company until you're making more than like $5 million, right? Which I think is totally valid. She's like, otherwise you don't have enough like meat on the bone in your company to X's. Like, what are you going to like go make a passive $100,000 a year? Like, that's cool. It's like, but then you're one bad decision away from your entire business collapsing.
Yeah. Or one key person ruining your business because you're not giving them proper oversight.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just interesting sort of going through that. But it's been fun to, as you've been working with the Scale group though, sort of seeing people come into that. And it's funny, we started this brand and that group as like kind of a wholesaling off-market generation kind of focus. But now as we've sort of found our core members and found our voice, getting more into like the business development, like how to actually build a team.
Honestly, where we can add the most value too.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and it's fun because like, if I'm being honest, I don't really care about wholesaling real estate. Like it's our means to an end at this point.
It's a widget, right?
It is. And it's how we made our first batch of money. It's you know, how we started the business. It's now the business that we run. But building that entrepreneurship skill, I'm now very confident that if you and I decided to go and start a deck building business, that we could use the exact same skills and do something that was exactly the same. That would actually be an interesting experiment as we continue to grow this business and we get it more optimized. You know, we're looking to bring in a couple of higher level people to help manage it. We should actually do that as like a test. Like go start like a completely different business and see how long it takes us to get to $1 million.
Yeah, I think that's actually a valid thing because the way you're talking about this, when we're talking like wholesaling's, you know, it's not the why, it's the thing. You know, it's the widget that we're selling. And we learned this too. The hard way is also from our coach is like all businesses are made up of marketing, sales, operations, finance, HR, like finance and HR and all that other googly stuff into one. So 4 elements of your business. And so if it's a business you can market for, it's a business you can build a sales team. There is no reason that if you're building a decent sized wholesale business that relies heavily, because we're heavily reliant on marketing and heavily reliant on sales, like that you can't go and replicate that in, say, a deck building business, a roofing business, solar sales if you really want to get slimy.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, I want a shirt that says, instead of Elliot, whatever that guy's name is, I wanted to say something really like my name, just be Dan.
Just Dan.
I don't know.
Where did the shirt come from?
You never. Oh, sorry.
I know. I got to give a little background. I hate that guy. That guy's a prick. This is the guy that's like, if you don't have a 6-pack, you can't work for me. That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, but he wears a shirt. Like his brand is like Elliot, and so he has these like tight shirts. He's pretty in shape, and it's just Elliot. So I'm going to get that and say Dan, and I'm going to be just talking about sales.
He's like the skinny Jack dude, right? Like he's one of those guys that he couldn't really put on a lot of mass if he wanted to. Like I bet he's a good athlete. I bet he's like strong because he trains, but he's also that guy that like had a 6-pack when he was 7, and it's like good for you, right? Like you've kind of always
naturally
been
lean. Yeah. Anyhow, but the point of this being is you can if you want to go start a business, which all businesses, I don't know a lot that aren't this way, are scaled through marketing and sales. And if you can craft the skills of building those teams, you can kind of replicate that. Now, there's different like expertises and different restrictions and different rules, like business rules around like how you can scale some of these businesses. And it's really hard, but you can, like I always say, you can kind of will your way to $100,000 of profit, but $1 million is where the scale gets tough. And that's where I think you have to craft some expertise in the business that you're working in. But really, as long as you're good at scaling, marketing, and sales, you can get a long ways.
You can, yeah. And you know, you can get to, like, I think that if you figure out the gist of this business, you can get to $1 to $2 million relatively simply with like a small team, but you're probably going to be working a lot. It's going to be one of those situations. And we know a lot of guys like this, guys and girls, we've met several girls like this as well, is they have this operation, they're very involved with it, but it's built in a way that they can't really step away. And that's not really where you want to be, right? Like that is a difficult sort of position to be in. And you've created a job for yourself. I'm sure it's very profitable, but people will burn out. And then also too, a lot of the times when you have a business like that, your burnout starts to reflect on the other people that are working like dogs in your business that are also going to burn out, but they don't even have the upside of business like you do. And if they leave, that's when you get into trouble. You know, this is one of the reasons we've seen a lot of great investment business, a lot of great wholesalers that have come through, had this meteoric rise, and then basically just fall off a cliff because they either burn out and fail. The key person on their team decides, like, I can go do this myself. I'm going to work this hard, as opposed to working like a dog for you. And they have no systemization in place. And one of the big things I think that came up, we talked about on the call today, which I think a lot of new people are trying to figure out, is like, when you start bringing people into the business, I think us as human beings, who want to build a relationship, we create roles like for the people that are first in those roles, right? Or like, so we have John that comes and work for us. How can we make sure that John is successful? Well, John has goals and ambitions and everything, just like you do. His goal is not to work for you for the next 30 years. I mean, sometimes you find that person, but more often than not, that's not true, right? Sure. Instead, what you need to do is you need to use John to help figure out how to create that position for your business so that when he leaves and freaking Larry comes in and does his job, he can now do a better job at John's job than he did before, right? And that's how you build an organization, is you use the people that are in those, I was going to say use people, you should use people. You allow the people that are in those roles to craft and refine the role for your business so that it can be done by anyone that fits the skill set and characteristics of that
and what
occupation.
Also kind of what I hear, what you're saying is like all too often when it comes to like people trying to build the role around that individual is they look at the individual's like strengths and weaknesses and they get this like this misconception of like what the role needs to be because, this person's not tech savvy, so I'm not going to have anything in my tech stack around acquisitions. Like that's stupid, right? Don't craft based on the skill sets of the person you have in that role. Here is the role. Here's the expectation, the tasks they're going to do, the expectations and the processes they're going to follow. Now, let them refine that and find kind of the holes in your system so that the next person coming in is set up. There's a new baseline for where the person can leap from and springboard from.
Yep. For sure. And, it takes practice to get there. And that I think the thing that people really struggle with is that's different for everyone. So many of us went through the standard school system where we are taught that there is a right and wrong. And unfortunately,
pass, fail.
Yeah, like with entrepreneurship, it is as much of a creative endeavor as it is a like logical endeavor.
You know what? I'll go even one like level deeper on that. Of like a big part of it is most of us don't have the patience to get from to go down the journey. You need to recognize that likely that first person you're going to hire is not going to be here in 12 months, 24, 36, or however long that time horizon is. And in reality, for you to find that rock star, it might be 3 people in 2.5 years. It might be 3 people in 6 months, but we don't know what that timeline necessarily looks like. And as we get more experience, we get better and that timeline gets shorter for different parts of our business. But in reality, I don't know about you, I'm an impatient person, and going into business, my time horizon for wanting things was so short. Now I think on a lot longer time horizon.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, most people, they're pursuing financial freedom or they're desperate to leave their job or they're, desperate to make $1 million or whatever that is. And you can't really rush it. Like realistically, sometimes people get lucky and they have these big rises in income that worth all those things. That's great. But you're completely right. That person that you bring in, those people that you originally start with, they're not going to be with you if you go too far down the track. And even more so if they are a high performer, because they're going to see the opportunity that you as a small business owner have, and they're going to want that for themselves. And that's why it's so important to not build any part of your business for a specific person. Build it for a role. Use that A player to make it as valuable of a position, as strong of a position, to systematize as possible. And that way, when they do leave, because they will, someone will give them a better offer. Even if you give them equity in your company, you give them, profit sharing, all the things that people try to do, people will ultimately leave. And you need to make sure that you're able to recover from that so it doesn't for you. So, yeah.
Business becomes more of a true operation at that point. You become an operator and recognizing that people aren't going to be as dedicated to your business. And they, like you said earlier, they have their own goals and their own missions. And if they show up and they realize that whatever that alignment that they thought they were getting with you isn't there, they're going to leave, or they're going to have different external factors that influence them. They're going to have family situations that change and they have to move away or they have to change jobs or whatever. That you're an operator at that point. You just have to deal with that and recognize that when those things happen, your processes and systems get stressed and you get a little bit better every time they get stressed.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too, is a lot of people don't handle stress very well. That unfortunately is part of it, especially people that have been corporate W-2 for a long period of time and don't really know what stress is. I think that's I really think that's why most people can never leave and be successful. When they say I'm just not an entrepreneur, it's really you just don't handle stress well.
Or they don't. The unknown is challenging.
The unknown is
challenging. That's the stressful piece.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, stress, mental toughness. I think honestly, that's a big reason that you see a ton of people that are, super into fitness that end up starting like successful businesses. They're used to putting their body and and developing mental strength. Same thing you see a lot of like high level athletes or like high level military operators. Like you just had the episode with Tim Carroll, who's now has a very successful business, right?
Yeah.
That's because you developed that mental toughness at a young age. And so now being able to deal with the ups and downs of entrepreneurship is easier as opposed to the person that went to the prep school, went to the college, like, oh, they got really stressed about their social life and grades and all sorts of things. But realistically, the downside of that is very limited. Like, honestly, like sure, you can get kicked out of college, which would be a devastating thing for people. But honestly, if you got into college, it's kind of hard to get kicked out unless you're completely negligent. And this is coming from someone who was on academic probation for 7 out of 8 semesters that I was in college. Right? All I had to do was just do a little, like give a little bit more fucks and I would get through it.
Yeah.
Right? And
I'm so lucky that I went to college later in life because I would have been 8 out of 8. I don't honestly think I would have got through it. So I'm impressed that you, of all people, got through it.
Well, especially you knew me back then, right? Like,
yeah, I did know you.
And it wasn't like I didn't necessarily care. Like I did. I just didn't try very hard, you know? And I would just do the bare minimum to get by. But point being, you know, they don't really develop the mental toughness to be a successful entrepreneur. Like that has to come through an exterior factor or through experience by trying and failing in entrepreneurship, which is not a very fun thing to do.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things in life that create that stressor. Sports as a youth is a really good one because there's failure. Like you're never the best, right? You fail. And one thing I've learned about myself about stress is, although I'm not like, I guess, immune to it. One thing that I have this cycle that where something's stressing out, you might not even know you stressed it out. Get one good sleepless night and you wake up and you're like, none of that shit really matters. The sun's out. You're like, this is not that bad. And then you go on your day and you figure it out and you keep going. I'm sure a lot of people can kind of relate to that because you get built up with this anxiety and stress about something that's subconsciously bothering you. And it seems to come out in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. while you're laying in bed. And then you just like have a restless night and walk away the next day ready to roll.
Well, you know, it's like progressive overload and building up tolerance, right? Like I used to have kind of sleepless nights with some of the stress I was in, especially when I left my W-2 job, it was 75% of my income. I was trying to get into real estate. We were spending all this money that we didn't necessarily have, trying to flip houses. We were doing all this bullshit, right? And I used to have these sleepless nights and I would be super worried about like making these payments, especially the first like flip I had that was starting to go sideways. They didn't have any sort of online processing. So this fucking lending company, dude, I had to write a check for $2,937 by paper and mail it every single month. Right. And I would they would send me the invoice and I would have to it would just hurt my soul every single time.
Right.
And that was, super stressful period. But after a while, you get to a point where you just have more of that. And you think that you know what stress is. And then you really know what your ceiling is. And then you get to a point where you're just like, nothing's really that bad anymore.
This is not that bad.
Yeah. And that's like the thing. Like we work with our team and we have some of these deals that go sideways. Or like we had our $580,000 subject to loan called the deal on sale. We're just like, well, that's just another thing that we have to deal with, I guess. Like literally my heart rate did not change one bit. I did not lose a wink of sleep. It's just another part of the game. And that's how it works. You know, it's like
just what you got to do. You got to face those ups and downs.
I've heard the same thing about people that have larger business about getting sued. Like the first time they get a lawsuit, have we been sued yet? I think we've had
a dozen threats, it seems like.
Yeah, we haven't actually been sued. But I've heard that a lot of people say it's like the first time you get sued, they're like, super worried about it, kind of consumes their life. And after you've operated a large operation for a while, it's kind of just like, I'll just let the lawyers figure it out.
Right.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, what else? What are you going to do, right? There's nothing you can do.
Well,
you know what I mean? Other than like maybe operate more ethically if you're doing some messed up shit.
Well, that's the thing, right? If you're not running an ethically challenging business, you're not doing stuff, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. And if you did end up breaking like some laws around using media that you weren't supposed to, which I know was one of the ones that we had.
Had a couple of those.
Yeah, like if you had like a transaction where someone had another claim to title that you didn't necessarily know about, if you were like truly ignorant and you weren't malicious with stuff, typically the way out is relatively simple.
Right.
But if you had bad intent, then you probably should be stressing because you're going to get screwed.
Yeah, because you're a bad person.
You're a bad person, exactly.
You deserve it. But those are the people usually actually filing lawsuits ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Well,
suing the sewers.
Yeah, you just immediately come back with emotional distress that your wife had or your daughter because you had to sell her car.
whatever.
I don't know enough about lawsuits to how those actually work, but
me neither.
So anyways, it's been fun just working on that, see how it's coming together, and starting to plan for more of our partnership markets, and then we're starting to turn up here again in Spokane, which I'm super excited about.
We're gonna crush some shit around here, dude.
I know,
coming back in hot.
Yeah, our local market here, we paused it a little bit while we built out our partnership program. I'm doing our virtual stuff over the last year and a half. We're gonna start turning it up again. The way the economy is, I think 2024 is going to be a really strong year for off-market investors in general. We've accumulated a lot of cash that we want to start putting to work, and we have good systems in place to have rental properties up here. So just preparing to start that up again. And, it's a funny market because there isn't a ton of operators. There's one operator in general who we're not really big fans of, and they're starting to build a really bad reputation for themselves. So we should be in a pretty good place to come in with our developed resources and operations and just sort of see what happens. So
and our high ethical standards.
I mean, dude, it's not that hard. Just don't be a dick and just tell people the truth. Why lie to people to make some money? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Don't be a liar. Don't try to make a quick buck off of people. Yeah. Think about this, where you're going to be at with these people in 5 years. Right. If you make decisions based on that, you're always going to do okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get back into it. You know as well as I do, I love to buy shit. Mm-hmm. And so, buying some stuff will be a lot of fun, I think, going into 2024. I think you're right. It's going to be a kick-ass time to be in the market if you are prepped and you've got the skill set like we do to really hit the ground running and just take it to the next level. Because, I don't know, it's just not a perfect storm, but there's just a lot of opportunity. Anytime things get weird and tight, it shakes out kind of the people at the market that should never have been operating. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of it's almost like a wildfire, they say. Sometimes it's good for the forest because it burns down a lot of the little stuff on the ground and allows the big mature trees to really grow and really sink their roots in. And so that's what it is for the operators that end up staying around and staying in the game. Is you just have a stronger root system ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, that's key to any successful endeavor, right? Is who stays in the game the longest. If you stay in the game and you take action the longest, you will be the most successful. And when a bunch of people are forced out of the game through financial hardship, interest rates destroying their one and only business model, all of a sudden it creates opportunity for those people that are local. So, I'm excited. Start doing some local wholesaling here. Maybe a couple wholesale stuff is, looking decent. I don't think we have any interest in doing larger flips anymore. Let the construction people handle that. But just, buy some multifamily, especially right here. We got a lot of duplexes, triplexes, things like that.
Yeah. Definitely would love to crush some of the multifamily game around here, picking up some small stuff because there is still a lot of small operators that run it here. Mm-hmm. The big stuff is really hard to get a hold of, anything large. But that mid tier of stuff is great.
Yeah, well, all the bigger stuff is owned by the local real estate mafia families.
There's a couple people. Yeah, that's about it.
I don't know. I'm assuming other small towns have that too. But here in Spokane, there's probably 4 or 5 different real estate families that own everything, mm-hmm. and they're just known for their rundown properties, bad sort of business practices. If you go the property management companies they own are usually really poorly regarded. So, but they
I will say
hold on
the
everything.
Big one, the big one in town is, if you're local and you listen to this podcast, the Douglas family, you always hear stuff about them. I think the unique thing about us is you can go to any big metro, right? Yeah. And you're going to see huge REITs investing, buying, $400 million properties all day long. Here in Spokane, we don't have a lot of that going on, but we have one family that is basically a giant REIT. I mean, they're worth billions of dollars and they never sell anything. Yeah. Right? The dad just passed away actually last month, the guy that started it all. And he's been rumored to have never sold a property. Mm-hmm. And so they just buy. So they own a good chunk and have developed a good chunk of our town, which is in general, the greater areas 600,000, 700,000 people.
Yeah.
And they're also in other markets across the West Coast. So they're massive, right? But to be localized with such experts in a smaller market, they're able to capitalize on the commercial, the residential development. I mean, they do big time stuff, 400 unit apartments all over the place, bigger than that too. And so it becomes harder for mom and pop to actually operate against that if you want to scale into any larger development stuff.
Yeah, it's almost impossible because not only do they own the property, they also own the processes and the people associated with it.
Exactly. If you drive around Spokane where we're at and you see large tracts of land available, it's been vacant for years and years. They own it.
Yeah. Yeah, they own everything. I'm trying to look up right now what exactly their stake of everything is. estimated Spokane holdings is over $1 billion in value just in Spokane. That's freaking insane. Which includes commercial buildings, post offices, homes, apartments, everything. Yeah, he just died middle of December.
Every town though that we've talked to enough investors, they always do have kind of like that gatekeeper for that, and good for them, like that they're the gatekeeper or whatever, like Chip and Joanna Gaines, I would imagine, like down in where are they at? Waco.
Yeah, it was a Waco.
Like, I bet before they were even famous, like I bet you didn't mess around. Like they just did everything. Right? Like you get to a certain scale, and you kind of get that. You're rewarded.
Yeah, before they were famous, Chip and Joanna would just roll up outside your house, and Chip would come in and break your kneecaps if you were
right. Just like going to the tax auction, buying tax liens, and kicking people out of their house. Yeah. And I don't know that this is true. I don't believe it, but I do want to. I saw his book. He has a book. What's it called? Capital Gains, with their last name is Gaines. I was like,
oh my God,
nice, dude. I was like, I want to read this book because I bet you, like, I've seen a few episodes of their show. I bet you he's like a solid dude. I feel like he's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like they're legit. You can't hate on them like some of the other people out there who obviously don't have that much going for them. And even though they do stuff for TV, like they earned the right to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not like
they're beyond that.
Yeah, it's not like they're just like the person that, I don't know, was the pretty face and like put in front of that opportunity.
Right.
So
who's another solid dude is like, as far, I don't know if he's like a good dude. Like I'm just saying, like a legit operator's Torek from that show Flip or Flop.
Oh yeah, he's in San Francisco or something, isn't he? Or was he?
He's down in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's like LA County area. Yeah. But like he's like actually like a pretty big time operator. Like he's not just a pretty face.
Yeah.
Like if you actually hear his background story.
Yeah.
So like he's done like some legit stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, down there you have to. Right. Because I mean it's an area full of fakers, Orange County.
Right.
People start to see through that very, very quickly. No.
Right.
So,
well, it's kind of funny, like looking back, because I saw that show like way before I became an operator in real estate. But now looking back on it and knowing enough dudes in LA and like Southern California that are like trying their best to do deals, like you have to be damn good, because he was doing some deals down there, whether they flopped or flipped, I don't know. But like, it's hard to do deals in Southern California.
It's funny. So I just Googled him. I also looked up Chip and Joanna. And you know what the reoccurring theme is with like most of these people that get this big? They started doing real estate like so long ago, like 2008, 2009, back when no one was doing it. And sure, they caught the increase of the market, all that stuff perfectly. But they also started the game when everyone said that they shouldn't. And they have stayed in the game since then.
Longevity.
Yeah.
Right?
For all of those people that are successful, there's so many people that barely got their feet wet, never got started, did it for, 2 or 3 years and then quit. And they've been doing it for 15 years. And I firmly believe if you do anything for 15 years, you can be pretty dang successful unless you kind of suck at it. In which case, you should have probably figured that out 10 years earlier. But
hopefully every year you're building on top of that. Like that's why I love that quote. I can't remember where I got it from, but it was like, you in this case, like, do you have 15 years of experience or 1 year of experience 15 times?
Yeah, that's so huge.
You have to grow every year and like actually learn from your mistakes and keep moving on. And like we've made mistakes and we've learned from it. We've adapted, we've overcome. We didn't get out of the game. Like when we've lost money, we kind of stuck it out. Not that we've had like major losses, but like
we've had a couple big
losses. We just
losses.
had to adapt and overcome.
We had 70
losses that would take out average people.
Yeah, $70-something thousand loss. I think is our biggest. You've had a couple 30s and 40s. I mean, it comes with the territory, right? Just having more wins to offset that. But I mean, and the funny thing is too, it's not like we've intentionally committed to this business. I mean, we've talked about quitting and doing other things like all the time.
Yeah. We have talked about quitting.
And honestly, I think it just comes down to laziness. I don't want to go start something else. That sounds like moral at this point.
Right? For real. Jesus. Yeah. So, you're absolutely right. Like I'm dedicated. I've got a committed path here. Like path of least resistance at this point.
Yeah. So anyway, so now it's just all this shit. Cool. All right. Well, going into Q1, if we get to the end of the quarter, what do you think would be like, yes, that was a successful first quarter?
Oh, I already looked at that.
I haven't even looked at that. Just think about it right now. That's how you know it's a good thing. So the stuff that we're working on, right? So for me personally, I didn't say the end of the first quarter. I'd say the end of like middle of February. I want our cold calling team that I've stood up to be fully functioning in all of our markets, and I want to be getting at least one lead per day that's a quality in every single market. So that's basically 19 leads a day from 4 callers. I don't even know if that's possible or if that's reasonable, but that's my goal that I want to shoot for.
I think it's a fair goal, honestly. Like by mid-February, that's pretty aggressive. But for Q1, if I was to actually just like look at it kind of at a macro level, at Q1, like the different businesses, I would definitely like to have already started doing deals here back in Spokane, wholesale deals, start wholesaling our own properties again. And with that, also having our dispositions processes and like things like done so that we are actually doing wholesaling for other people as well, wholesaling for clients on a flat fee basis, like have that already running and doing deals for people at that point in time, as well as like looking for other opportunities in other markets where we're not even operating. Like I don't know that we need to do that in Q1, but like that's where like I'm visioning that being a bigger opportunity than just us.
Cool. I like it. It's totally doable. So sweet. Right on, guys. Well, there are our little plans there. We'll keep you guys updated and keep us accountable as we go. So awesome.
Do it.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate your time on this fine Wednesday. You should give each Dan and I a follow on Instagram. I'm at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorMan. Dan, I have a bunch of content we've been posting recently around a lot more business-oriented stuff and what we're working on. Actually, I'm getting ready to put out a reel about steps that I did to make that call center in like 6 days, 7 days. I don't know. It was like Tuesday to Monday. That's 6 days, right? I have a little reel coming out for that. Go check it out. But I'm at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorMan. Dan, go ahead and shoot us a follow. Send us a DM. Let us know what you think. And we always appreciate connecting with people. Besides that, everybody, thanks for listening. And we'll talk to you next week.
See y'all.